Dear 12th class students, today we will go through an interesting story. This is actually a ghost story by Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond is basically an Indian author. He was born in Kasoli of Himachal Pradesh and he lives in Mussoorie. So he is well known as one of India's best loved and most prolific writers. He has been writing novels, poetry, essays, and short stories for almost half a century now. So, this story is actually about ghosts that reside in some small hill stations. So, in the very beginning, the writer talks about some beautiful hill stations. He talks about Shimla, he talks about Mussoorie, Lansdowne. I will just play this beautiful video for you. So this Shimla is basically a capital of Himachal Pradesh. This is one of the popular place to visit during summer. So there are different tourist places. Likewise, he has mentioned the place Lansdowne, which is also a hill station in North Town in Uttarakhand.
लैंसडाउन उत्तराखंड राज्य के पौड़ी गढ़वाल जिले का एक छावनी शहर है। यहाँ की नेचुरल ब्यूटी टूरिस्टों को और जगह के मुकाबले काफी कम मिलती है।
So this is
टूरिस्टों के लिए
also a hill
लैंसडाउन की असली शुरुआत होती
station
है
in the North Town in Uttarakhand.
गांधी पार्क चौराहे से, जहाँ से रोडवेज, मैक्स, जीप जैसे ट्रांसपोर्ट के साधन कोटद्वार, पौड़ी और दूसरी जगहों के लिए मिलते हैं। लैंसडाउन की मशहूर जगह है टिपिन टॉप, जो यहाँ के मुख्य चौराहे से 2 किलोमीटर ऊपर की ओर पड़ती है। इस रास्ते को चीड़ के पेड़ों दिन खासी भीड़ रहती, खासी बर्फबारी होती है, जिसे देखने काफी संख्या में टूरिस्ट आते हैं। गर्मियों में इस शहर का मौसम काफी सुहावना कर भुल्ला ताल पड़ता है, जो टूरिस्टों का मुख्य पिकनिक पॉइंट है। इस ताल के बाहर पार्किंग की
So there are many popular places where we would love to visit. So, but there are many places which are known as haunted places, and each of these places are having a unique, scary story that might scare you from head to toe. So, it's believed that some terrifying ghosts reside in the small hill stations. So this there are some places which are abandoned, like hotels or some guest houses that really feels haunted. So the writer in this story talks about different experiences, and he shares different experiences of ghost stories. So So the writer talks about Shimla. He says that Shimla has its ghost rickshaw, and he talks about Lansdowne. He says that it has headless horsemen, and he says about Mussoorie. He says it has woman in white. So a writer says Shimla has its ghost rickshaw, and Lansdowne its headless horseman, and Mussoorie has its woman in white. So the writer says that one day late at night, uh, the writer actually says that late at night, this woman in white can be seen sitting on the wall on the winding road up to the hill station. And he says that uh, do not stop to offer her a lift, do not dare to give her a lift. So he says that one should not offer her a lift because she has very evil eyes. She will fix you. She will fix the other person with her evil eye and will ruin the day, will ruin the holiday. And he says that Missouri taxi drivers and other locals call this woman in white, they call this woman in white Bhoot Auntie, and everyone has seen her at some time or the other. So it means to give her a lift is to quote disaster. If anybody dares to give her a lift, it means she would definitely cause harm. She would definitely cause harm. She's a dangerous lady. She will cause something very harmful to you. She will quote disaster. So it's believed that many accidents have taken place because of that lady, and even people offer her lift, and then after giving her lift, they are either they either pick themselves up from the road, or they are sometimes picked up by concerned citizens. So once they are picked up by some other people, they see Booth Auntie is nowhere. Booth Auntie suddenly disappears after causing harm to the other person. And so the writer talks about his experience. He says that he says that once he was coming back from Dehradun late one night with Ganesh, Seli and Abha in a car. And then what happened? They saw this woman in white, they saw this boot auntie sitting near the wall. And what did Ganesh do? Ganesh slowed down the car. He thought of giving this woman in white, he thought of giving this boot auntie lift. She looked towards the passenger in the car, and then she gave a wicked smile. And then she gave a wicked smile. She had pointed teeth like a vampire. So, uh, uh, so what happened? She seemed attractive, but she had a very wicked smile. She looked like slightly like a vampire. And then Abba screamed, and she suddenly screamed, and she said, "Don't stop! Don't even look at her! It's Booth Auntie." After hearing this, Ganesh pressed down on the accelerator and sped past her. Next day, they didn't offer her a lift. They didn't give her a lift. And next day, what happened? They heard that a tourist's car, had gone off the road, and the occupants had been severely injured. So the accident took place shortly after they had stopped to pick up a woman in white who had wanted a lift. So they didn't give her a lift, and next day they came to know about this accident, that one of a tourist car had gone off the road because of her. They have met an accident because of her. So then the writer shares one more experience. He talks about an old English lady who was his neighbor when he lived near Henburg Allen School. He talks about Miss Ripley Bain, an old English lady who lived there in his neighborhood. He says that she told me that her family was haunted by a malignant phantom. So here an evil and wicked ghost, they were haunted by this wicked ghost had that always appeared before the death of one of her relatives. So she has told the writer that whenever there was before the death of any person in his, whether maybe of anyone from his family or from his relatives. So before the death of any person, this evil, this wicked ghost would appear in front of them before anybody's death. So she said her brother saw this the night before her mother died. So before the death of any person, this ghost would appear in front of them, and then later they would hear the news of anybody's death. And so she said her brother saw this apparition the night before her mother died, and both she and her sister saw this ghost before the death of their father. So this ghost would appear in front of them before the death of anyone in their family. The sisters slept in the same room. They would sleep in the same room. They were both. One day, what happened? They heard a curious noise, a strange noise, and they thought maybe it's their cat in the room. They woke up and they thought that maybe it's actually the cat in the room. When the cupboard door suddenly opened and a luminous, a bright, a shining head appeared. It was very messy. It looked like a decay. It was about to decay. It was totally in disaster. It was in a very bad condition, in a very filthy condition. Its fleshless mouth grinned at the grinned at them, gave a broad smile. It was without flesh, and this ghost gave a broad smile, and it was very terrifying. So then they crossed themselves and it vanished. The next day they learned that their father, who was in Lucknow, had died suddenly. So this ghost would often appear before them before the death of any person in the family, in any relation, in their relatives maybe. So this was all about this experience of Miss Ripley Bean. And then the writer says that yes, everyone likes to hear about these, and it's true that we often like to hear about these haunted stories. We would love to hear stories about haunted houses, haunted places. But even there are people who do not actually believe this, who do not believe in such concepts, but even then they would like to hear these stories. So then the writer is telling one more experience. He says that many years ago I had a strange experience in a house in Dehradun. So the writer is talking about one more experience. He says that he had a strange experience in a house in Dehradun in which an elderly English couple had died from neglect and starvation. They had died because of ignorance, they have died because of carelessness, they have died because of hunger. When in 1947, when many European residents were leaving the town and immigrating to the UK, this poverty stricken old couple, they have no friends. They were sick and they have been forgotten. Nobody remembered them to take them with themselves. They were too ill to go out for food. They were unable to go out for food, for medicine. They were too old, they were too sick. So what happened? One day they died in their beds, and later, after so many days, after several days, this was discovered by landlord's munshi, by landlord's accountant. So this house stood empty for many years, for several years. No one even wanted to live in it. So the writer is saying that as a young man, being a young man, he would sometimes roam about the neglected grounds or explore the cold, the bare rooms. The rooms were totally bare, empty rooms, no furniture, no doors, no windows, and he will feel very sad. He will feel very depressed since he know the story and the tragedy of whatever happened in that house. So one day he took Jay Shankar with him, and Jay Shankar didn't know anything about the history, about the tragedy that took place in that house, but he felt quite sick with the apprehension and fear, and he told Ruskin that, I don't know why have you brought me here. I'm feeling very sick with the apprehension that maybe something is going to happen. I have this kind of feeling that something bad is going to happen. This place seems to be very scary. This place seems to be very dreadful. Why have you brought me here, Ruskin? And then he says, I'm sure it's haunted. There is something wrong with this place. And only then the writer thought of telling him the tragedy that had taken place within its wall, that the one of the couple had died here. So now the writer says that these days the same house is used as a government office, and nobody lives in it, nobody dares to live in it except a chokidar whose name is Gurkha. Gurkha lives there. He's a strong man with strong nerves who sleeps there, who lives there, who sleeps in the back veranda. He doesn't care about the atmosphere of the place, so the atmosphere doesn't bother him. But he has told the writer that he does hear some strange sounds in the night, like someone crawling about on the floor above. He tells him that there is, as if there is someone who is crawling on the floor. There are some sounds. So these old houses are noisy places, and in the next video we will go through the other part of the story.